The stones are not silent, they are waiting. Scattered across our planet lie the broken bones of worlds we have forgotten, each one a locked vault of hidden knowledge. This is a journey to 30 ancient ruins that defy explanation and rewrite history. By the end, you will see the past not as a simple timeline, but as a profound mystery filled with lost technology, vanished empires, and cosmic codes carved into the earth. We will stand before a temple older than agriculture and dive into a sunken city older than the pyramids. How much of human history is still buried, and what did those who came before us truly know? What forgotten story are you most eager to uncover? Deep in southeastern Turkey, on a windswept hill known as Göbekli Tepe, the first chapter of this hidden history is written in stone. This is not just an old site, it is the oldest temple ever discovered by humanity, built a staggering 11,600 years ago. To grasp that timeline, this place was already ancient when the Great Pyramid of Giza was new. Its discovery did not just add a page to our history books, it tore them up entirely. For decades, the accepted story was clear. First came the farming revolution. Then, with stable food supplies, humans had the leisure time to build monuments and develop complex religions. Göbekli Tepe turns that logic on its head. Here, hunter-gatherers, people who had not yet domesticated a single plant or animal, came together to construct something monumental. They carved and moved massive limestone pillars, some weighing over 20 tons, from local quarries and erected them in great stone circles. This was a project requiring hundreds of workers, skilled artisans, and a powerful, unifying vision, a level of social organization no one believed was possible before settled farming. The centerpieces are the mysterious T-shaped pillars, towering figures that many archaeologists believe represent stylized human forms. They are not blank monoliths, they are canvases. Etched into their surfaces is a menagerie of ancient predators and symbols: foxes, snakes, scorpions, wild boars, and birds of prey. These are not the docile sheep or cattle of a farming society. They are the powerful, dangerous creatures of a wild world. The carvings are a window into a pre-agricultural belief system, a spiritual realm deeply intertwined with the forces of nature, survival, and perhaps the cosmos itself. Even more perplexing is the site's fate. After centuries of use, Göbekli Tepe was not abandoned to the elements. It was intentionally and carefully buried under thousands of tons of soil and rubble. This was not an act of destruction, but one of preservation, as if sealing a sacred time capsule for the future. What hidden knowledge does this sealed capsule reveal? It tells us that the drive to create, to worship, and to seek meaning in the stars may be the very engine of civilization, not its byproduct. Some researchers point to alignments of the pillars with certain stars, suggesting these early builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of the night sky, using it to mark time and seasons long before written calendars. Göbekli Tepe forces a profound question. What if religion and collective ritual came first, pulling people together and creating the need for the organization that would later lead to agriculture and cities? The stones on that hill whisper that our story is far older and more mysterious than we ever dared to believe. But what if the very foundations of our timeline are built on sand? While Göbekli Tepe pushes our history back, another monument, one we think we know, might be far older than its official story. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands not as a silent tomb, but as a screaming anomaly in the desert. Its official construction date is placed around 2500 BC, but this dating relies on fragmented evidence and assumptions. A growing chorus of researchers points to geological clues like water erosion patterns on the nearby Sphinx that suggest a much wetter climate, potentially pushing its origins back thousands of years earlier. This is not just academic debate, it is a question that cracks open history. Because if the pyramid is older, who really built it and with what knowledge? Its precision mocks our understanding of ancient technology. The base is leveled to within less than an inch across its entire 13-acre footprint. Its four sides are aligned to the cardinal points with an accuracy of a fraction of a degree, a feat requiring an understanding of true north that seems impossible for its time. Even more astonishing are the mathematical codes whispered by its stones. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to its height is 2 pi. The dimensions encode the golden ratio and the precise length of the solar year. These are not random numbers, they are fundamental constants of mathematics and astronomy, embedded in architecture millennia before they were supposedly discovered. This has fueled extraordinary theories about its original purpose. Could it have been more than a pharaoh's resting place? Some propose it was a giant power plant, using the geometry of its chambers and the piezoelectric properties of its granite to harness the Earth's energy. Others see it as an energy transducer, a machine designed to focus cosmic or telluric forces. The most tantalizing legends speak of it as a repository, a library of knowledge from a lost civilization like Atlantis, sealed within its core. The structure itself hints at celestial secrets. Deep inside, narrow shafts extend from the so-called King's Chamber, pointing directly to the stars Sirius and Al-Nitak in Orion's belt, stars of profound importance in Egyptian mythology. These are not ventilation shafts, they are precise astronomical sightlines, and today the search for its hidden knowledge continues with 21st century tools. Scientists are using muon tomography, a technique that uses cosmic rays to see through solid rock, and they have detected large, unexplained voids deep within the pyramid's mass. These are not mapped chambers, they are blank spaces on the blueprint, promising rooms untouched for millennia. The Great Pyramid, therefore, is not a solved puzzle in a museum. It is an active archaeological site, a locked door. Every new scan, every recalculation of its age, asks us the same unsettling question: what profound truth about our past is still entombed within those 2,300,000 stones? Across the Salisbury Plain in England, another stone circle speaks a language of light and shadow. Stonehenge is often presented as a simple solar calendar, a giant sundial marking the longest day. But its true purpose is a far more intricate puzzle. At its heart lies a masterful understanding of celestial mechanics, transforming it from a monument into what some researchers call an ancient astronomical computer. The most famous alignment is the heel stone, a solitary sentinel outside the main circle. On the summer solstice, the rising sun appears to crown this stone, sending a shaft of light directly into the heart of the monument. This was no accident, it was a meticulously engineered event, a moment of cosmic theater that would have united the community with the heavens. Yet Stonehenge's gaze was not fixed solely on the sun. The arrangement of its stones, particularly the 4 station stones that form a rectangle, reveals precise alignments with the extreme rising and setting points of the moon. The moon's cycle is far more complex than the sun's, taking 18.6 years to complete its major standstill. To encode this long, slow rhythm into architecture demonstrates a sustained, generational observation of the sky, a hidden knowledge of lunar patterns that govern planting, tides, and perhaps even spiritual cycles. But the stones themselves hold another layer of mystery. The iconic inner circle of blue stones, weighing up to 4 tons each, were not local. They were dragged over 150 miles from the Preseli Hills in Wales. This Herculean effort begs the question why these particular stones. Modern analysis suggests the blue stones have unique acoustic properties. They ring like a bell when struck. This leads us to a fascinating field of study: archaeoacoustics. The very layout of Stonehenge, with its concentric circles and towering trilithons, creates a complex sound environment. Experiments show that sounds made within the circle are amplified and distorted in specific ways, with echoes that seem to come from the stones themselves. Was this a deliberate design? Could the monument have been a ritual sound chamber where rhythmic drumming, chanting, or the ringing of the blue stones induced altered states of consciousness for healing or communion? This transforms our view of Stonehenge from a silent observatory into a living, resonant instrument. It suggests its builders possessed a hidden knowledge that bridged the cosmic and the sensory, using geology to manipulate sound waves and astronomy to synchronize human ritual with the grand clockwork of the universe. The stones were not just for looking, they were for listening and perhaps for feeling a vibration that connected earth to sky. The sophistication of Stonehenge's acoustic design hints at a profound understanding of natural forces, but what if an ancient culture built a machine to physically model the cosmos? In 1901, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon a shipwreck from the 1st century BC. Among statues and pottery, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed utterly unremarkable. For decades, it sat in a museum drawer, a curiosity. Then, researchers began to clean it, and the world changed. This was the Antikythera mechanism, a device so advanced it should not exist for another 1,000 years. It is not a ruin in the traditional sense, but it represents the most profound kind of hidden knowledge, technological genius lost to the sea and to time. X-rays and advanced three-dimensional scanning have slowly revealed its secrets. Inside that corroded casing was a clockwork universe in miniature, a complex system of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears precisely cut by hand. This was not a simple calendar, it was a portable, hand-cranked analog computer designed to predict celestial events with stunning accuracy. By turning a handle on the side, an ancient Greek scholar could watch dials and pointers move across several faces, displaying the positions of the sun and the moon against the backdrop of the zodiac. It could predict lunar phases and, most astonishingly, solar and lunar eclipses, even accounting for their cyclical patterns. One dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games, tying athletic tradition to the celestial clock. The genius lies in the gearing. To model the irregular motions of the moon, the mechanism uses a brilliant pin and slot device that mimics the moon's elliptical orbit, a concept of orbital mechanics not formally understood until Johannes Kepler in the 17th century. Another set of gears accurately represents the Metonic cycle, a period of 19 years after which the phases of the moon repeat on the same calendar dates. This device did not just tell time, it calculated time, integrating multiple astronomical cycles into a single, tangible model. Its existence shatters our linear view of technological progress. Here was mechanical engineering, precision metalworking, and abstract scientific thought of a level that would not be seen again until the great cathedral clocks of medieval Europe. It forces a humbling realization that a golden age of Greek science and technology, hinted at in fragmented texts, was far more advanced than we ever credited. The Antikythera mechanism is a single, salvaged relic from what was likely a whole tradition of such devices, a hidden knowledge of gears and cycles that vanished when the ship that carried it sank. It asks us what other wonders were lost in the great library fires and sunken hulls of history, and how much farther ahead might our own civilization be if that chain of knowledge had never been broken. The quiet genius of the Antikythera mechanism reveals a civilization that mapped the heavens with gears and bronze. But what if an entire city was itself a working model of the cosmos, built on a scale that dwarfs imagination? Far from the Mediterranean, on a high plateau in central Mexico, lies Teotihuacan, the city of the gods. This is a metropolis of staggering order and mystery, a place where geometry feels divine. Its origins are a blank page, for the people who built it, who named it, and who governed it, left no written records that we can decipher. They simply vanished, leaving behind their monumental speech, a city of stone that whispers of advanced hidden knowledge. Walking down the central artery, the Avenue of the Dead, you are immediately struck by a profound and deliberate alignment. The entire city is laid out on a grid that is offset from true north by exactly 15.5 degrees. This is not a surveying error, it is a precise astronomical alignment. The avenue points directly to the setting of the Pleiades star cluster on a key date in the ancient Mesoamerican calendar. This single fact tells us the city's layout was dictated by the stars from its very conception. The three colossal structures that dominate the skyline form a perfect right triangle on the landscape, a geometric relationship that speaks of intentional design. The Pyramid of the Sun, a mountain of earth and stone, is not just a religious symbol. Its base perimeter is almost exactly the same as that of the Great Pyramid of Giza, another eerie echo across continents. More intriguingly, a cave discovered beneath it, a natural lava tube, was elaborately modified and may have served as a sacred womb of creation, aligning the pyramid's immense power with the underworld. Facing it is the Pyramid of the Moon, perfectly framing the sacred Cerro Gordo mountain behind it, blending architecture with the natural topography in a sacred bond. But it is the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, also called the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, that guards the most startling secrets. Beneath its steps, archaeologists discovered a tomb unlike any other, a chamber they called an underworld in miniature. Here they found something that should not exist: pools of shimmering liquid mercury. In the ancient world, mercury was a rare and mystical substance associated with mirrors, portals, and the gods. But from a modern perspective, mercury is a conductor, a liquid metal with unique electrical and thermal properties. Its presence in a ritual context deep under a pyramid is deeply puzzling. Nearby, explorers found vast sheets of mica, a mineral with excellent insulating properties layered in thick slabs. Today, mica is used in electrical capacitors and as a thermal shield in advanced technology. Why were these materials, with clear energetic applications, buried in a sacred tomb? Were they part of a ritual to channel or contain some form of energy, real or symbolic, that we no longer understand? The most breathtaking theory about Teotihuacan, however, comes from looking at the city not as a collection of buildings, but as a map. Researcher Hugh Harleston proposed that the precise distances between the city's major monuments correspond to the orbital distances of the planets in our solar system. In this model, the pyramids and temples become planetary markers, with the Pyramid of the Sun representing our own sun. If this is correct, Teotihuacan is a massive, scaled model of our cosmic neighborhood, built thousands of years before the telescope. This suggests its unknown architects possessed a sophisticated, perhaps inherited, understanding of celestial mechanics and planetary scale that rivals the insights of the Greeks. A city without a name, built by a people without a history, yet potentially holding a map of the solar system in its streets. What were they trying to preserve or perhaps communicate to the future with this stone and mercury blueprint of the heavens? The liquid mercury of Teotihuacan hints at a forgotten mastery of materials, but in the high Bolivian Andes, the stones themselves defy the very logic of human hands. This is Puma Punku, part of the greater Tiwanaku complex, a place where the ruins do not look ruined, they look precision-machined. The site is a chaotic field of shattered megaliths, but each fragment tells a story of impossible engineering. The stones here are andesite, a volcanic rock as hard as granite, yet they are cut with a perfection that seems to belong to another age. We are not looking at rough-hewn blocks, but at components. Massive slabs, some weighing over 100 tons, feature razor-sharp edges and flawless 90-degree angles that would challenge a modern mason with laser-guided tools. Their surfaces are not merely flat, they are polished to a smooth, almost glassy finish, a surface so uniform it feels manufactured. The true genius, however, is in the details that most eyes would miss. Scattered among the rubble are H-shaped blocks of stunning complexity. Each one has shallow, recessed channels cut with geometric perfection, and most astonishingly, they feature identical dovetail notches, a kind of stone clamp cut with millimeter precision across multiple blocks. This is not simple stacking, this is interlocking architecture, a modular building system designed for seismic stability in an earthquake-prone region. The puzzle deepens when you ask how. The official narrative suggests these were shaped with stone hammers, bronze chisels, and patient abrasion with sand. But to anyone who looks closely, that explanation collapses. The cuts are too clean, the inner corners too sharp. There is no tool mark, no sign of trial and error, only a cold, flawless finality. The andesite is so hard that bronze, a relatively soft metal, would shatter against it. Even with countless workers, the consistency across hundreds of blocks is something primitive tools simply cannot achieve. This has led to profound and controversial theories about lost ancient technology. Some researchers point to local legends that speak of a time when the stones were soft, moved and shaped by sound. The idea of sonic levitation or acoustic softening of stone seems like pure myth, yet it persists in the oral history. More tangible but equally advanced is the theory of diamond-tipped tools. To cut andesite with this precision would require a substance harder than itself. Ancient cultures did know of diamonds for engraving, but the scale and application suggested here would imply an industrial process, not a craft. Others see evidence of prefabrication, as if these blocks were cast from a liquid stone mixture using advanced geopolymer chemistry, a theory that could explain the flawless surfaces and intricate detailing. Whatever the method, Puma Punku stands as a stark, physical rebuke to our standard timelines. It suggests the presence of a pre-Inca civilization, perhaps the Tiwanaku themselves at their peak, who possessed a hidden knowledge of engineering, geology, and physics that borders on the industrial. This was not merely a temple complex, it was a demonstration of total mastery over matter. The stones are not just placed, they are assembled with a technical confidence that we struggle to reverse engineer today. What does it mean when the artifacts left behind are more advanced than the culture history says created them? Puma Punku asks us to consider a terrifying possibility that advanced knowledge can be not just lost but utterly erased, leaving behind only the indestructible, incomprehensible parts. The flawless stonework of Puma Punku represents a mastery of the immediate, the tangible. But in the arid plains of southern Peru, an ancient people turned the entire earth itself into their canvas, creating art on a scale so vast it can only be comprehended from the heavens. These are the Nazca lines, a series of hundreds of geoglyphs etched into the dark desert pavement to reveal the lighter soil beneath. They are not ruins you walk among, they are a message written for the sky. From the ground, you see only shallow trenches and indistinct paths, but from the air, the hidden knowledge of the Nazca culture unfolds in breathtaking detail. Stretching across nearly 200 square miles are precise geometric shapes, trapezoids and spirals and triangles miles long, alongside colossal depictions of animals and plants. A hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider, a monkey with a coiled tail, a killer whale, all drawn with a single, continuous line that never crosses itself. The scale is almost incomprehensible, with some figures stretching over 1,200 feet, larger than the Empire State Building laid on its side. This creates the central mystery. A people who could not fly created art meant only to be seen from the air. How, and more importantly, why? The mainstream archaeological view suggests these were ritual pathways, walked by priests during ceremonies to invoke deities associated with water and fertility in this brutally dry landscape. The lines may have served as sacred processional routes, their straightness and geometric perfection having a spiritual significance we can no longer fully grasp. Yet the precision of the designs hints at a knowledge far beyond simple footpaths. Many of the longest straight lines point directly to sources of water in the distant mountains or to places on the horizon where the sun and moon would rise and set during solstices. This has led to the compelling theory that the entire system functioned as a giant astronomical calendar, an almanac carved into the desert floor to track celestial cycles crucial for agriculture and ritual. Another practical theory suggests the lines are a vast map of the region's hidden underground water sources, with the animal figures possibly representing constellations or clan symbols tied to specific aquifers. The shapes could have marked where to dig for water in a landscape where it was more precious than gold, but the most controversial ideas push far beyond the terrestrial. The Swiss author Erich von Däniken famously proposed in the 1960s that the long, straight runways and giant figures were landing strips and signals for ancient astronauts, extraterrestrial visitors whom the Nazca people worshipped as gods. While this idea is dismissed by mainstream science, it persists in popular culture because it speaks to the sheer otherworldliness of the site. The lines do not look like they were made for humans on the ground. They look like markings for something or someone above. Regardless of their ultimate purpose, what the Nazca lines undeniably reveal is a staggering hidden knowledge of surveying and geometry. To create a perfectly straight line that runs for miles over hills and valleys, keeping its form invisible from ground level, required sophisticated techniques. Researchers believe the Nazca engineers used simple stakes and cords, scaling up small models plotted on grids. They understood how to maintain proportion and alignment across vast distances, a feat of applied mathematics. They were master cartographers, treating the desert as their parchment. This transforms the lines from mere art into a testament of intellectual achievement, a permanent record of a culture that could think and plan in dimensions that dwarfed the individual human form. They encoded their relationship with the cosmos, the earth, and the life-giving water beneath it into the very skin of the planet. The Nazca lines force us to look up, to shift our perspective, and to wonder what other massive, hidden drawings might lie beneath our feet, waiting for the right altitude to reveal their ancient, silent story. The vast desert canvas of the Nazca lines forces our gaze skyward, but in the jungles of Cambodia, an empire carved its vision of the cosmos from sandstone and laterite. Angkor Wat is not merely a beautiful temple, it is the world's largest religious monument, a staggering testament to the Khmer Empire's ambition and hidden knowledge. To walk through its immense moat and across its causeway is to cross a symbolic ocean, entering a stone model of the Hindu universe. The entire complex is a precise microcosm. The central quincunx of towers represents the 5 peaks of Mount Meru, the mythical axis of the world in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. The surrounding walls are the mountain ranges at the edge of existence, and the vast moat is the cosmic ocean. Every gallery, every bas-relief depicting epic battles and celestial dancers, is part of this grand architectural metaphor. This was a machine for enlightenment, designed to guide a pilgrim physically and spiritually through the layers of reality toward the sacred center. For centuries, we saw Angkor Wat as a magnificent island in the wilderness, but new technology has ripped away the jungle veil to reveal a shocking truth. Using airborne LiDAR, which lasers through dense canopy to map the ground, archaeologists have discovered that the temple was the dazzling heart of a vast, low-density urban sprawl. This was not a city in the traditional, cramped sense, but a meticulously engineered landscape covering nearly 400 square miles. The data revealed an intricate grid of canals, roads, reservoirs, and thousands of previously unknown mounds, temples, and ponds. This was a hydraulic civilization of astonishing sophistication, using water management to support a population of perhaps 750,000 people. The scale of this hidden metropolis rewrites our understanding of pre-industrial urbanism, yet an even more celestial mystery is encoded in the stones. A provocative theory proposed by researchers suggests the layout of Angkor's major temples, including Angkor Wat itself, mirrors the stars of the constellation Draco as they would have appeared in the sky at a very specific moment in time, 10,500 BC. This date, far older than the temple's construction in the 12th century, is not a mistake but potentially the key. The theory posits that the builders were encoding a sacred, ancestral epoch into the landscape, aligning their earthly kingdom with a celestial pattern from a mythical golden age. Whether this precise stellar correlation holds up to further scrutiny, the intent is clear. The Khmer architects possessed a profound astronomical knowledge. The temple's alignment is so precise that on the spring equinox, the rising sun crowns the central tower, a direct hierophany of light connecting heaven and earth. Angkor Wat, therefore, is a triple revelation, a spiritual map, the core of a lost mega-city, and a potential star chart frozen in stone. It challenges us to see ancient monuments not as isolated wonders, but as the glittering peaks of vast, submerged civilizations whose full scope and wisdom we are only beginning to measure. The cosmic maps of Angkor Wat were carved in stone for eternity, but on the most remote inhabited island on Earth, a different kind of message stands guard. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is a speck of volcanic rock in the vast Pacific, over 2,000 miles from the nearest continent. Here, nearly 900 massive stone figures, the Moai, stare inland with an eternal, silent gaze. For generations, their existence posed a single, overwhelming question. How did a people with no metal, no wheels, and no large animals move these colossal statues, some weighing over 80 tons, from the quarry to their coastal perches? The answer reveals a hidden knowledge of physics, teamwork, and oral tradition that we almost missed. The long-held theory involved log rollers and large crews dragging the statues on their backs. But recent experiments and a closer look at local legends have uncovered a more elegant, almost living solution. The statues were not dragged, they were walked. Researchers working with a full-scale concrete replica demonstrated that by using 3 strong ropes and a coordinated rocking motion, a surprisingly small team could make the Moai sway from side to side, pivoting on its curved base. With each rhythmic pull, the statue would take a step forward, appearing to walk majestically across the landscape, just as the oral histories had always described. This method required profound practical knowledge, an intuitive grasp of center of mass and pendulum motion, and flawless rhythmic communication among the teams. It was not brute force, but applied physics passed down through song and story. The Moai hold a second, more literal layer of hidden knowledge beneath our feet. For centuries, we saw only the imposing heads. Modern excavations have revealed the shocking truth: the heads have bodies. Most Moai are buried up to their shoulders, with full, detailed torsos carved with intricate petroglyphs, including crescent symbols that may represent the island's sacred canoes. This burial was likely a slow process of natural erosion and soil accumulation, but it means we have been looking at only a fraction of these monuments for hundreds of years. Their full forms, now emerging, tell a richer story of the people who carved them, yet the greatest hidden knowledge of Rapa Nui may be lost to us in plain sight. This is the Rongorongo script, a system of glyphs found carved on wooden tablets. It is the only indigenous writing system ever discovered in Polynesia. The symbols depicting birdmen, fish, plants, and geometric forms are beautiful and complex, but they remain completely undeciphered. After the social collapse and contact with outsiders in the 1800s, the last people who could read them perished. Linguists cannot even agree if the glyphs represent a true written language, a mnemonic device for reciting chants, or a ceremonial calendar. What is clear is that they are the final record of the island's deepest secrets. They likely contain not just myths and genealogies, but the accumulated ecological wisdom of a people who pushed their fragile island environment to the brink. They could tell us how the great palm forests were managed, the precise rituals for fishing and bird worship, and the true story of their societal transformation. The Moai were a statement of power and ancestral connection, but the Rongorongo tablets were the library. One holds the island's physical memory in stone, the other its intellectual soul in undeciphered wood. Together, they are a haunting lesson in how knowledge, even when carved in monumental scale, can still slip through our fingers when the last voice that understands it falls silent. Deep beneath the fairy tale landscape of Cappadocia, Turkey, where wind-carved spires pierce the sky, lies a hidden world in reverse. This is Derinkuyu, an underground city descending over 200 feet into the volcanic rock, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers that could shelter 20,000 souls. It is not a simple cave system, but a meticulously engineered subterranean metropolis, revealing a hidden knowledge of survival so complete it feels like a blueprint for the end of the world. Walking its narrow passageways today, you move through a fully realized society turned inside out. There are stables for livestock, cellars for food and oil, communal kitchens with blackened ceilings, wineries, and even dedicated spaces for religious worship. Chapels with simple crosses carved into the walls provided spiritual solace deep within the earth. Massive circular stone doors weighing up to half a ton could be rolled shut from the inside to seal each level independently, a fail-safe security system against any pursuer. But the most astonishing feat is the one you cannot see, the breadth of the city itself. Over 50 ventilation shafts, some stretching all the way to the surface, provided a constant supply of fresh air to even the deepest chambers. Sophisticated wells tapped into underground rivers, ensuring a permanent water supply that was inaccessible to any army above. This was not a temporary bolt hole, it was a self-sufficient ark designed to sustain life for months, perhaps even years, in total isolation. The central mystery, of course, is who built this profound shelter and from what were they hiding. The most accepted theory points to the early Christians of the Byzantine era from around the 7th to 8th centuries who carved it as a refuge from Arab raids. The chapels and crosses support this narrative, yet the sheer scale and complexity of Derinkuyu suggest its origins may be far older, with some archaeologists proposing that the first levels were excavated by the Phrygians or even the Hittites over 1,000 years earlier and later expanded by successive generations. This raises a more profound question than simply who built it. Why did so many different cultures across millennia choose to invest such staggering effort not in monuments to the heavens, but in a fortress in the earth? The answer may be written in the geology itself. Cappadocia's soft volcanic tuff is easy to carve but hardens on contact with air, making it perfect for underground construction. But the motivation speaks to a recurring, dark chapter in human history, the relentless need for safety from existential threats. It was a refuge not just from human invaders, but potentially from the brutal extremes of the surface world, a stable, temperate haven from scorching summers and frozen winters. Derinkuyu represents a different kind of hidden knowledge, not of stars or mathematics, but of communal endurance. It reveals a civilization that mastered the art of disappearing, that prioritized collective survival over all else. Their greatest achievement was not a towering pyramid, but an inverted one, a monument not to the gods above, but to the unwavering human will to persist, hidden in the silent, breathable dark. What does it say about us that some of our most advanced ancient engineering was dedicated not to reaching for the stars, but to vanishing completely from the world? The silent, communal endurance of Derinkuyu demonstrates a civilization mastering the art of vanishing. But in China, another underground marvel poses the opposite question. What if a project of immense scale was completed, used, and then erased from history so completely that its very memory was buried? This is the mystery of the Longyu Caves, a discovery that feels less like an archaeological find and more like stumbling upon a secret world. In 1992, in Zhejiang province, a local farmer decided to pump water out of what he thought was a small, deep pond. After 17 days of pumping, he and his neighbors did not find a pond bed. They found a colossal, hand-carved cavern. This was not a natural formation. What they revealed were 24 enormous, man-made grottos, each one a vast underground hall carved with staggering precision from solid sandstone. The scale is almost impossible to grasp from the ground. Some of these caverns are over 100 feet tall, with pillars the size of giant redwoods left in place to support the soaring ceilings. The volume of rock removed is estimated at over 1 million cubic meters. To put that in perspective, that is enough stone to build 30 Great Pyramids of Giza. And this was done, we must remember, entirely by hand with simple iron chisels over 2,000 years ago. Yet the most haunting detail is not the size, but the texture. Every single surface, from the floors to the soaring ceilings to the massive pillars, is covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks. These are not random strikes, they are a consistent decorative design, a deliberate fish scale or herringbone pattern etched with machine-like regularity across tens of thousands of square feet. This tells us the builders were not merely excavating space, they were finishing it with an aesthetic vision, turning brute labor into a work of art meant to be seen and experienced. The hidden knowledge here is not in star charts or mathematical codes, but in the chilling silence of the historical record. For a project of this magnitude, requiring the coordinated labor of thousands of workers for generations, there is not a single written record, not a single historical text, not even a local legend that mentions their construction. It is a historical black hole. Who ordered it? Who paid for it? What was its purpose? The theories are as varied as they are inconclusive. Some suggest they were imperial tombs, though no burial artifacts or remains have ever been found. Others propose they were a massive mining operation for a valuable mineral like fluorite, but the careful, decorative finishing argues against a purely industrial purpose. Could they have been a secret hiding place for an emperor's army or treasury, a subterranean fortress like Derinkuyu on a grander scale? Perhaps the most intriguing idea comes from the cave's acoustics. The shape of the chambers and the uniform chisel marks create unusual sound properties, with certain spots amplifying whispers and creating clear echoes. Were they designed as ritual spaces for chanting or communication with the spirit world? The truth is, we may never know. The Longyu caves present a different kind of lost knowledge, the knowledge of human endeavor itself. They are proof that a civilization can undertake a project of epic, almost unimaginable scope, pour its resources and artistry into it, and then simply walk away, allowing the memory of why they did it to vanish completely. It forces us to ask, what else have we forgotten? What other chapters of human ambition lie buried, not under soil, but under the sheer weight of lost time, waiting for a curious farmer with a water pump to reveal their silent, scaled walls once more? High above the modern city of Cusco, Peru, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman presents a puzzle in stone so visually jarring it seems to defy the laws of physics. This is not a structure of tidy, rectangular bricks, but a cyclopean jigsaw puzzle assembled from colossal blocks of limestone, some weighing over 120 tons. The walls curve and undulate, built from massive, irregularly shaped polygons that lock together with a precision that leaves no space for a blade of grass, let alone a hand to slip between them. No mortar was used, nor was it needed. The stones simply fit perfectly, as if the walls were poured as a liquid and then solidified. The most famous example is the stone of 12 angles, a single block carved with 12 distinct, perfectly planed facets that interlock seamlessly with its neighbors in a three-dimensional embrace. Looking at it, the immediate, overwhelming question is how? How did the Inca, with only bronze tools and stone hammers, achieve this level of stonemasonry? The official explanation involves patient pecking with harder stones, trial and error fitting, and the use of sand to grind surfaces smooth. But for many who stand before these walls, that answer feels insufficient for the scale and perfection on display. This has given rise to enduring legends of a lost Inca technology, a hidden knowledge of how to manipulate stone itself. One persistent story speaks of a plant juice, a secret solvent that could soften rock to a clay-like consistency, allowing workers to mold the blocks into place before they hardened again. While no archaeological evidence supports this, the theory persists because the stones look less cut and more shaped, their surfaces appearing almost plastic. Another idea suggests the use of focused sunlight with giant concave mirrors to heat and expand specific points on the stone, allowing for precise fracturing. Yet the true hidden knowledge of Sacsayhuaman may not be in a mythical softening agent, but in a profound empirical understanding of geology and engineering. This technique is called polygonal masonry, and its genius is not just aesthetic, it is profoundly functional. The irregular, interlocking joints create a structure with no straight lines of weakness. When an earthquake strikes, a wall made of uniform bricks will crack along the straight mortar lines, but a polygonal wall like Sacsayhuaman's is a dynamic, flexible entity. The stones can shift and sway within their tightly fitted pockets, dissipating the seismic energy throughout the entire structure, and then settle back into place when the shaking stops. This is why these walls have stood for over 500 years in one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, while Spanish colonial buildings erected beside them have crumbled repeatedly. The builders understood their material and their environment on a deep, intuitive level. Beyond its staggering construction, Sacsayhuaman's purpose is also layered with meaning. While the Spanish called it a fortress and its zigzagging walls certainly served a defensive purpose, many scholars believe its primary role was ceremonial. Its location, shaped like the head of a puma with the city of Cusco forming the body, suggests it was part of a vast, sacred geoglyph. Furthermore, certain structures within the complex are aligned with the rising and setting of the sun during solstices, turning the entire site into a grand astronomical stage for rituals that connected the Inca ruler, the Sapa Inca, directly to the sun god Inti. So Sacsayhuaman is a triple revelation, a testament to seismic engineering that baffles modern architects, a potential site of lost stone working techniques, and a ceremonial center aligning earth with sky. It stands as a reminder that hidden knowledge is not always about secret formulas, but can be the hard-won, practical wisdom of a culture that learned to dance with the moving earth, building not against nature, but in concert with its raw, powerful forces. The seamless stonework of Sacsayhuaman clings to the mountain, a testament to builders who mastered the solid earth. But what if the most profound ruins are not on land at all, but submerged beneath the waves, guarding a lost chapter of humanity? Off the southern coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, in clear blue water, a massive formation rises from the seafloor. This is the Yonaguni Monument, a site that blurs the line between natural wonder and human creation, and its mystery lies in the eye of the beholder. From above, it looks like a sunken city, a complex of monolithic terraces, sharp steps, and towering pillars that resemble a stepped pyramid. One section features what many insist is a carved human face, staring eternally into the aquatic gloom. There are straight avenues, what appears to be a wide, flat stage, and even a distinct rock formation that looks uncannily like a turtle. The scale is monumental, with the main structure stretching over 150 feet long and rising nearly 80 feet from the seabed. The immediate, thrilling impression is that you are looking at the drowned ruins of an ancient civilization. Geologists, however, offer a powerful counter-narrative. They argue that Yonaguni is a spectacular example of natural sandstone weathering. The region is seismically active, and the bedrock here is prone to fracturing along straight lines and plains. Strong ocean currents over thousands of years could have eroded the stone into these seemingly artificial platforms, steps, and pillars. The apparent face and turtle, they say, are classic examples of pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar shapes in random patterns. The rock itself, called sandstone, naturally splits into flat, angular blocks which could create the illusion of human design. Yet, for those who see a hand at work, the details are too compelling to dismiss. They point to features that seem to defy simple geology. There are multiple right-angled corners and long, parallel channels that run with a consistency rarely seen in nature. The so-called stage is a perfectly flat, horizontal surface atop a vertical pillar. Perhaps most striking are two round holes, each about 2 feet deep, positioned side by side on a rock face, which look precisely like post holes drilled for structural support. The sum of these parts, argue proponents like researcher Masaki Kimura, is simply too great. They propose that the Yonaguni Monument is the remnant of a pre-glacial civilization that thrived in the Pacific over 10,000 years ago, during the last ice age when sea levels were hundreds of feet lower and this area was dry land. This theory taps into a profound and haunting possibility. The hidden knowledge Yonaguni might guard is evidence of a lost epoch. As the glaciers melted at the end of the Ice Age, rising waters swallowed not just coastlines but potentially entire cultures and their achievements. This monument, if human-made, would be a frozen snapshot of that vanished world, a place where people built with stone on a grand scale on what was then a coastal cliff, now a silent reef. Whether a masterpiece of nature or a relic of a drowned civilization, Yonaguni forces a humbling confrontation with the ocean's memory. It asks us how much of human history is not buried in sand but lost beneath the sea, waiting for our eyes to adjust to the deep blue light and decide what we are truly seeing. Returning to the high Bolivian plateau, the sprawling ruins of Tiahuanaco, the great city connected to the shattered precision of Pumapunku, tell a story of a civilization that saw time as a circle carved in stone. At its heart stands the Gate of the Sun, a single massive block of andesite weighing over 10 tons, framed by a doorway that feels like a portal to another age. The surface is dominated by a central, radiating figure often called the staff god, holding a staff in each hand with tears streaming down his face. Flowing from this central deity are 48 squares, 32 with winged attendants and 16 with human faces. For decades, scholars have debated its meaning, with one compelling theory suggesting it is a complex calendar. The 48 squares may represent a 48-year cycle, possibly tracking the appearance of Venus, while the 32 figures could relate to a lunar count. This is not a simple sundial, but a sophisticated timekeeping device, encoding celestial knowledge in a language of symbols we can only partially decipher. Nearby, the Akapana Pyramid reveals a different kind of genius, one of water and earth. This stepped mound was not just a ceremonial platform, it was a monumental hydraulic engine. Its core was a complex, stone-lined network of channels and drains, designed to collect rainwater from the summit and funnel it through a series of interconnected basins and underground conduits. The water would have cascaded down the structure's sides in a controlled, ceremonial flow, mimicking the sacred mountains that provided life to the arid Altiplano. This was engineering in service of cosmology, a man-made mountain that breathed with water, symbolizing the cycle of life and the civilization's mastery over their harsh environment. Yet the most profound hidden knowledge of Tiahuanaco may be written not in its stones, but in the stars above them. Mainstream archaeology dates the city's peak to around 500 to 1000 AD. But a radical theory, championed by researchers like Arthur Posnansky and later Graham Hancock, uses astronomical alignments to propose a far more ancient origin. They argue that the primary structures of Tiahuanaco were aligned to a different sky, one from 17,000 years ago. They point to the Kalisasaya, a large rectangular courtyard, suggesting its eastern and western walls are aligned not to the current equinox sunrise, but to where the sun rose at the solstices over 10 millennia earlier, when the Earth's axial tilt was in a different position. If correct, this places Tiahuanaco in a forgotten epoch of human history at the very end of the last ice age. This staggering timeline connects directly to the haunting local myths that surround the site. The Aymara people speak of a great flood, a cataclysmic event that drowned a previous world. Their legends tell of a time when Tiahuanaco was a thriving port city on the shores of a vast inland sea, Lake Titicaca, which was once far larger. The flood myths describe a dark age of chaos, after which the creator god Viracocha emerged from the lake to restore order and instruct the survivors. Could these stories be a cultural memory of the rapid sea level rise at the end of the Pleistocene epoch, a real global cataclysm that submerged coastal civilizations and reshaped continents? Tiahuanaco, sitting at a breathtaking altitude of over 12,000 feet, might have been a survivor city, a refuge built by a sophisticated culture that witnessed the world drown and encoded a warning and a memory into the alignment of their stones with a pre-flood sky. This site asks us to listen to the convergence of myth, astronomy, and geology, and to wonder if the true ruin is not the city itself, but the entire epoch it may represent, a lost chapter of humanity that gazed at a different set of stars. Standing guard before the pyramids, the Great Sphinx presents a riddle carved not just in legend, but directly into the stone of its own body. This colossal figure with the body of a lion and the head of a pharaoh is officially attributed to the Old Kingdom pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BC. Yet its weathered surface tells a story that geology struggles to reconcile with that timeline. Look closely at the walls of the enclosure, the deep trench from which the Sphinx was carved. The weathering patterns here are not horizontal like wind and sand erosion. They are vertical, deep, undulating channels that look like rain gullies. This is the core of the water erosion hypothesis, championed by geologists like Robert Schoch. Their argument is stark: Egypt has been a hyper-arid desert for the last 5,000 years. To create this kind of deep, vertical weathering requires not occasional storms, but prolonged, heavy rainfall over many centuries. The last time the climate of the Giza Plateau was that wet was during the Neolithic subpluvial, a period that ended around 3000 BC or possibly even earlier. If the erosion on the Sphinx enclosure is from rainwater, then the core body of the monument must be far older than the 4th dynasty, potentially dating back to 7000 BC or even earlier. This is a claim that shakes the foundations of established history, suggesting the Sphinx is a relic from a time before dynastic Egypt, perhaps even before recorded history as we know it. The implications are staggering. It would mean the Sphinx was already an ancient, weathered monument when Pharaoh Khafre's sculptors recarved its head, perhaps in his own likeness, restoring a guardian from a forgotten age. This theory transforms the Giza Plateau from a 4th dynasty construction site into a place of ancient reverence, where later pharaohs built their pyramids beside a pre-existing sacred sentinel. But if the Sphinx is that old, who built it and what knowledge were they protecting? This leads to the most tantalizing legend associated with the monument, the Hall of Records. Ancient texts and esoteric traditions, from the writings of the Roman historian Pliny the Elder to the predictions of the famed psychic Edgar Cayce, speak of a secret repository buried deep beneath the Sphinx's paws. This Hall of Records is said to contain the ultimate hidden knowledge, the wisdom of a lost civilization, perhaps Atlantis, stored on imperishable tablets or crystals. It is envisioned as a library of a global, antediluvian culture, holding secrets of technology, astronomy, and human origins. Modern science has not dismissed the possibility of hidden chambers outright. Seismic surveys and ground-penetrating radar have, over the years, detected anomalies and cavities beneath the Sphinx, particularly around the front paws and along the sides of the body. While none have been conclusively proven to be man-made chambers, the data is compelling enough to keep the search alive. The Egyptian authorities have been cautious, allowing limited non-invasive scans but shying away from major excavation, partly to preserve the monument and partly, perhaps, due to the profound historical and religious implications of what might be found. So the Sphinx guards its secrets on two levels: the geological mystery written on its skin and the legendary archive potentially buried in its earth. It forces us to confront a humbling possibility that the most iconic guardian of ancient Egypt may not be Egyptian at all in its origin, but a much older heirloom from a world that vanished beneath the rising sands and the forgotten rain. What deeper truth lies waiting not in the desert sun, but in the cool, silent dark beneath those massive, timeless pores? The silent stones of Giza hold one kind of time, but across the sea, another monument captures a fleeting moment of light with such precision it feels like a command to the sun itself. In the gentle green hills of Ireland's Boyne Valley, the great mound of Newgrange rises, a rounded, grass-covered dome that seems part of the earth itself. Built over 5,000 years ago, this passage tomb is older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids of Giza. To step through its narrow, low entrance is to walk back into a world where architecture was a sacred conversation with the cosmos. The passage itself is a marvel of intention, a 60-foot-long stone corridor that leads inward and upward to a central cruciform chamber. For most of the year, this inner sanctum lies in profound, silent darkness. But for a few precious minutes around the winter solstice, something miraculous happens. As the sun crests the horizon on the shortest day of the year, a slender beam of golden light pierces through a small, perfectly positioned opening above the entrance called the roof box. This shaft of light travels slowly down the passageway, growing wider until it floods the central chamber with a radiant glow, illuminating the intricate carvings on the back wall for a brief, brilliant moment before retreating. This was not an accident or a happy alignment. The roof box is a feat of precise engineering, a stone-framed aperture designed with a knowledge of solar angles that would have required generations of observation. To achieve this, the builders had to understand the sun's lowest, most southern point on the horizon, and then construct a light, tight tunnel to capture it. It was a calendar in stone, marking the sun's rebirth and the promise of returning spring with a spectacle of pure celestial theater. The stones lining the passage and chamber are another language entirely. Covered in intricate, swirling spirals, concentric circles, and zigzag patterns, these megalithic art pieces are mesmerizing in their complexity. Their meaning is a mystery lost to time. Some researchers see them as maps of the cosmos, representations of the sun's path, or even symbols of the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The triple spiral on the chamber's back wall, the very spot illuminated by the solstice sun, might be a powerful symbol of this eternal cycle. Could these carvings be a permanent record of celestial knowledge, a stone diagram of the movements these people revered? Above it all, the hidden genius is the ceiling. The chamber is crowned by a corbelled roof, a masterpiece of Neolithic engineering. By layering flat stones, each one slightly overlapping the one below, the builders created a soaring, domed space that has remained completely waterproof for over 5 millennia. Not a drop of moisture has seeped through. This technique, which seems to defy gravity, required an advanced understanding of weight distribution and structural stress, all achieved without mortar. Newgrange, therefore, is a triple revelation of hidden knowledge. It is an astronomical observatory of pinpoint accuracy, an art gallery of cryptic symbols, and an architectural triumph that has outlasted empires. It speaks of a society that saw no division between science and spirit. For them, the sun's return was not just a seasonal event, it was a spiritual necessity, and they built a house to welcome that light, ensuring that even in the deepest dark of winter, hope would literally dawn within their sacred hill. What profound sense of connection to the universe compelled them to pour such effort into capturing a single beam of light once a year in a chamber meant for the dead? The sun's precise alignment at Newgrange reveals a culture intimately tied to celestial cycles, but in the coastal mist of Brittany, France, an entire landscape has been transformed into a monument of bewildering order. The Karnak stones are not a circle or a single temple, but an army of granite sentinels standing in eerie, silent rows. Over 3,000 individual megaliths stretch across the countryside in parallel lines for more than 4 kilometers, an expanse so vast it feels less like a sacred site and more like a giant's game board laid out upon the earth. Walking among these alignments, with stones ranging from knee-high to towering monoliths, you are enveloped by a profound sense of intention, a hidden knowledge expressed not in intricate carvings but in overwhelming geometric repetition. The sheer scale of the labor is staggering, representing the coordinated effort of a society with a unified vision spanning generations. But for what grand purpose were these countless tons of rock hauled and erected? The most enduring theory casts the alignments as a colossal astronomical observatory. Researchers have noted that the rows seem to point toward significant solar and lunar rising and setting points on the horizon. Some propose the entire complex functioned as a sophisticated calendar, marking solstices, equinoxes, and even the complex 18.6-year lunar cycle, allowing a Neolithic society to track time with agricultural and ritual precision across centuries. Yet another compelling idea ventures into the realm of geomancy, suggesting the stones were an ancient earthquake detector. The theory posits that the menhirs were placed atop active fault lines, and their alignment could have served to visually monitor seismic shifts in the land over time, a silent early warning system carved into the terrain itself. Perhaps the most evocative interpretation comes from local legend and symbolism. The sinuous, winding rows, especially when viewed from above, resemble a giant serpent slithering across the landscape. In many ancient cosmologies, the serpent is a powerful symbol of earth energy, fertility, and the underworld. Could the Karnak alignments be a massive representation of a serpent deity, a permanent invocation to the chthonic forces believed to flow through the land itself? This transforms the site from a scientific tool into a mythological map, a sacred diagram of the world's invisible energies. The true hidden knowledge of Karnak, however, may lie not in any single theory, but in the very fact of its existence. To organize the extraction, transportation, and precise placement of thousands of stones required a level of social organization, communal agreement, and long-term planning that defies our modern, short-term mindset. This was not a project for a single chieftain's glory, but a centuries-long endeavor for a collective goal we can no longer fully grasp. It speaks of a society that saw its relationship with the cosmos, the earth, and the divine as something so essential that they rewrote their entire landscape to reflect it. The stones stand as a permanent question, asking us what we, as a global society, would ever build together that would take 500 years to complete, and what unified knowledge would be important enough to encode in an arrangement of granite that would outlast every language, every empire, every memory of why it was made. While the Karnak stones stand exposed to the sky, a secret lies drowned in the dark earth of Egypt. Behind the magnificent temple of Seti I at Abydos, a descending passage leads to a place that feels utterly alien. This is the Osirian, a sunken, rectangular hall surrounded by a moat of murky groundwater. Stepping into this space is like walking into a different epoch. The main temple ahead is classic New Kingdom architecture covered in exquisite, detailed reliefs, but here the style is brutally simple, stark, and megalithic. The walls are built from enormous blocks of red sandstone, some weighing over 100 tons, fitted together with a clean, minimalist precision that feels more at home at Giza than in a temple from 1,000 years later. The central platform, meant to be an island, is surrounded by 10 massive, square pillars, creating a somber, powerful atmosphere. The most immediate and puzzling feature is the water. The structure is perpetually flooded by the high groundwater table, with dark, still water filling the trench around the central hall. This was almost certainly intentional by its builders, not an accident of time. The flooding creates a permanent, symbolic island of the dead, a representation of the primordial mound emerging from the waters of chaos, a core concept in Egyptian creation myths. This leads directly to its accepted symbolic purpose. It is considered a cenotaph, a symbolic tomb for the god Osiris, lord of the underworld and resurrection. The entire design mirrors descriptions of the mythical tomb of Osiris, an island surrounded by water. For Seti I, building this adjacent to his own funerary temple was a powerful act of religious devotion, linking his legacy eternally to the cycle of death and rebirth governed by Osiris. Yet the hidden knowledge the Osirian gods is not in its symbolism but in its stones. The architectural discrepancy is jarring. Why would Seti's builders use two completely different construction styles just meters apart? The main temple has smaller, finely carved blocks, while the Osirian uses Cyclopean masonry reminiscent of the much older Sphinx Temple or Valley Temple at Giza. This stark contrast has fueled a compelling and controversial theory that the Osirian is not a new kingdom creation at all, but a much older structure that already existed on the site. Proponents argue that Seti I simply discovered this ancient, revered megalithic building and incorporated it into his own temple complex, recognizing its immense sacred power and its natural alignment with the cult of Osiris. If true, this pushes its origins back into a shadowy pre-dynastic past, potentially contemporary with the oldest structures on the Giza Plateau. The cult of Osiris itself may hold a clue. It is one of Egypt's most enduring and profound religious traditions, centered on themes of death, judgment, and eternal life. Some scholars suggest this cult preserves fragments of a far more ancient, perhaps pre-pharaonic belief system. The Osirian, with its primal, water-filled architecture, could be a physical anchor of that tradition, a place where the earliest rituals of Osiris were performed. Its hidden knowledge is therefore twofold. It is a potential architectural relic from a lost chapter of Egyptian history, and a stone embodiment of a spiritual tradition that may be the very bedrock of the civilization we know. It sits flooded and silent, a puzzle in red sandstone, asking us if the greatest pharaohs of Egypt were not just builders but inheritors, adding their brilliant artistry to foundations laid in a time beyond memory. The megalithic foundations of the Osirian hint at a forgotten age of giants, but in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, the stones speak a language of pure, staggering scale. The Roman temple of Jupiter at Baalbek is a breathtaking ruin of towering Corinthian columns, a testament to imperial might. Yet, the true wonder lies not in what the Romans built, but in what they built upon. Supporting the entire western wall of the temple complex is a platform of such impossible proportions it defies all conventional history. This is the trilithon, 3 perfectly fitted limestone blocks, each one measuring roughly 64 feet long, 14 feet high, and 12 feet deep. Their weight is almost beyond comprehension, approximately 800 tons each. To put that in perspective, one single block of the trilithon weighs more than 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 jets. The Romans were master engineers, but moving stones of this magnitude was far beyond their documented capabilities, even at the height of their empire. The mystery deepens just a short distance away in the ancient quarry. Here lies the stone of the pregnant woman, a colossal block still partially attached to the bedrock. It is even larger than the trilithon stones, estimated to weigh over 1,000 tons. Next to it, another recently discovered monolith weighs a staggering 1,650 tons, making it the largest known worked stone from antiquity. The logistical challenge is mind-bending. How do you extract a 1,000-ton block from solid rock without fracturing it? How do you transport it over half a mile to the temple site across uneven terrain? And most impossibly, how do you lift these behemoths over 20 feet in the air to place them with millimeter precision in a retaining wall? The Romans used cranes, pulleys, and vast teams of men and animals, but their technology was designed for stones a fraction of this size. The sheer physics involved suggest a hidden knowledge of engineering, or perhaps something more that we have lost. This has led to profound theories about the platform's true origins. Many archaeologists believe the Romans simply co-opted a pre-existing, much older sacred site, building their temple on a cyclopean foundation they could neither explain nor replicate. If this is true, who were the original builders? Local legends are filled with stories of a race of giants, the Jinn, who constructed the platform before the Great Flood. While myth, these stories point to a cultural memory of a time when such feats were possible. More speculative theories explore the idea of lost physics. Could the builders have mastered a form of acoustic levitation, using specific sound frequencies to reduce the effective weight of the stone, making it movable by a small crew? Ancient texts from various cultures speak of stones being moved by the sound of trumpets or chants. Or perhaps they utilized a form of anti-gravity technology, manipulating the Earth's magnetic fields, a principle hinted at in obscure esoteric traditions but completely absent from our historical record. The hidden knowledge of Baalbek, therefore, is not in its beautiful Roman columns but in its foundational silence. It represents a gap in our understanding of the ancient world's technological peak. The trilithon stands as a permanent, unanswered question, a receipt for a transaction of labor and genius that our history books cannot account for. It forces us to wonder if the grandest achievements of the classical world were merely the final, elegant decorations on a stage built by hands from a far more capable and far more mysterious age. But the colossal stones of Baalbek are not the only legend of impossible scale. In the dusty Fayum region of Egypt, a different kind of wonder was said to lie hidden, a marvel so vast it was described as surpassing even the pyramids. The Greek historian Herodotus, who walked its halls in the 5th century BC, wrote of a labyrinth that left him in awe. He described a complex of 3,000 rooms, half above ground and half below, with winding passages so confusing that no one could navigate them without a guide. The walls, he claimed, were covered with countless sculptures, and the whole structure was built to house the tombs of the sacred crocodiles and the 12 kings who constructed it. For centuries, this Egyptian labyrinth was dismissed as one of Herodotus' tall tales, a traveler's exaggeration of a large temple complex. The site associated with it, near the Pyramid of Amenemhat III at Hawara, appeared to be nothing more than a vast, featureless plain of shattered limestone chips. The labyrinth itself had seemingly vanished, consumed by time and quarrying. Then, modern technology began to listen to the sand. In 2008, a team using ground-penetrating radar and other geophysical techniques surveyed the area around the Hawara Pyramid. Their scans did not find empty desert. They detected the clear, sharp signature of a massive, grid-like structure buried deep beneath the surface. The data revealed what appears to be an enormous underground complex with walls up to 10 feet thick, arranged in a precise rectangular pattern. The size is staggering, covering an area larger than a dozen football fields placed side by side. This was not a natural formation. The scientific evidence now strongly suggests that Herodotus was not exaggerating. He was describing a real, monumental achievement that later crumbled and was buried by the shifting sands. The hidden knowledge here is not just the confirmation of a legend, but the electrifying possibility of what this labyrinth actually was. The traditional view sees it as a gigantic administrative and religious center, the seat of power for Amenemhat III, a pharaoh known for his ambitious hydraulic projects in the Fayum. It could have housed thousands of priests, officials, and workers managing the region's agriculture and economy. Yet, the labyrinth's design points to something more profound. The description of impenetrable passages and countless chambers aligns perfectly with the concept of an initiation complex. In ancient Egyptian mystery traditions, the journey to sacred knowledge was often symbolized by a labyrinth. A novice priest might have been led through its bewildering corridors in a ritual of disorientation and revelation, emerging spiritually reborn. This transforms the structure from an office building into a machine for enlightenment, a physical manifestation of the difficult path to wisdom. But the most tantalizing possibility is that the labyrinth of Hawara was the ultimate repository, a library of all Egyptian knowledge. Later historians like Strabo and Manetho suggested it contained every scroll, every ritual text, every astronomical observation and medical treatise of the civilization. In this light, the labyrinth was not just a building, it was a backup drive for an entire culture's consciousness. If this is true, and if the geophysical scans are correct, then beneath that nondescript field in Hawara may lie chambers still intact, their walls potentially lined with niches that once held papyri, or even with carved reliefs detailing sciences and histories now lost to us. This would be the archaeological discovery of the millennium, a sealed archive from the height of the Middle Kingdom. The labyrinth's hidden knowledge, therefore, is dual. It is the confirmation that our ancestors were capable of architectural feats we are only now rediscovering, and it is the breathtaking promise that the greatest library of the ancient world might not have burned, but simply gone to sleep under a blanket of sand, waiting for the right moment to tell its stories. The promise of a lost library beneath the sand speaks to our hunger for written records, but in the dense jungles of Chiapas, Mexico, a different kind of text was carved in stone and stucco. The Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque rises like a stepped pyramid from the emerald canopy, a majestic crypt for one of the Maya's greatest rulers, King Pakal the Great. His burial chamber, discovered deep within the pyramid's heart after centuries of secrecy, held a single slab of limestone that would ignite modern imagination and controversy. The sarcophagus lid is a masterpiece of intricate carving depicting the king at the moment of his death. He is reclined not in a rocket but at the center of a cosmic diagram. From his body grows the world tree, the axis connecting the heavens, the earth, and the dark underworld of Xibalba. The so-called flames around him are stylized serpent and monster faces, symbols of the portal to the afterlife. The misinterpretation as an ancient astronaut in a control capsule is a classic case of seeing modern technology in ancient sacred art. The true narrative is far more profound, a visual scripture of Maya cosmology showing the king's soul embarking on its perilous celestial journey, descending along the sacred tree to be reborn as a god. This lid alone is a vault of spiritual knowledge, but the temple's name hints at a greater treasure. The Temple of the Inscriptions is covered, floor to ceiling, in the longest known Maya hieroglyphic text. These 617 carefully carved glyphs are not mere decoration. They are a precise historical record, a royal biography detailing Pakal's lineage, his accession to the throne, and his major accomplishments. They anchor myth in documented time, yet the hidden knowledge here transcends history, venturing into the realm of pure cosmic science. Within these inscriptions, Maya scribes encoded their breathtaking understanding of time. They recorded dates in the long count calendar, a system so vast it measures epochs spanning millions of years, revealing a civilization that thought in geological scales. More astonishing are the astronomical calculations intertwined with the king's story. The texts track the complex synodic cycles of Venus, the planet deeply associated with war and divinity. They detail the motions of the moon and likely other planets with a precision that required centuries of naked eye observation and mathematical genius. This was not casual stargazing, it was a rigorous priestly science. The temple itself functions as an observatory, its alignment and architecture designed to mark solar zenith passages and other celestial events. The knowledge guarded in Palenque is therefore a dual legacy, a spiritual map of the soul's journey through the cosmos, and a technical manual of that cosmos's observable mechanics. The Maya saw no contradiction between the two. For them, the dance of the planets was the breath of the gods, and a king's death was an event as calculable and significant as the rising of the evening star. They left behind not just a tomb, but a stone library proving that to know the heavens was to know the divine, and to record time was to seek immortality. Beneath the sun-baked streets of a quiet Maltese suburb, a silent world of sound awaits. The hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is not a ruin built upon the earth, but carved directly into it, a three-level labyrinth of chambers and passages hewn from the living limestone over 5,000 years ago. This is the world's only known prehistoric underground temple, a place where the boundary between architecture and geology dissolves into shadow. To descend its narrow steps is to leave the modern world behind, entering a womb-like complex that feels both profoundly sacred and unnervingly alive. The upper level feels like a natural cave system adapted for use, but as you go deeper, the artistry becomes unmistakable. The middle level opens into a series of rounded chambers, their walls smoothed and finished with a red ochre wash, mimicking the above-ground megalithic temples found across Malta. Here you find the oracle room, a small, circular chamber with a niche carved high on one wall. Speaking into this niche produces a deep, resonant echo that seems to vibrate through your very bones, a low-frequency hum that fills the space with an otherworldly presence. This is no accident of geology. Further in lies the most sacred space, the so-called Holy of Holies. This central chamber is carved to resemble the stone temples above, complete with a false doorway framed by spirals, a portal that leads nowhere in stone but perhaps everywhere in spirit. The atmosphere here is thick with silence, a silence that feels earned after the echoing whispers of the passages before it. This deep sanctuary was clearly the heart of the complex, a place of ultimate ritual. And it was here, throughout the chambers, that archaeologists made a discovery that shifted the site's purpose from temple to something more complex. They uncovered the carefully placed remains of over 7,000 individuals. This was not a mass grave, but a structured deposit, a collective burial spanning centuries. The bones were found mixed together, suggesting a practice of secondary burial, where bodies were perhaps exposed elsewhere, and then the cleaned bones brought into the hypogeum to join the ancestors. This points to a powerful cult of the dead, where the underworld temple served as a literal gateway to the realm of the ancestors. But the hidden knowledge of the hypogeum is not written in bones or carvings, it is felt in the air itself. Modern acoustic studies have revealed that the entire complex is a finely tuned instrument. Specific chambers, particularly the oracle room, resonate at a fundamental frequency of 110 Hz. This is a profoundly significant sonic signature. Scientific research has shown that exposure to sound frequencies around 110 Hz can directly affect the human brain, suppressing the language-oriented left hemisphere and allowing the more intuitive, image-processing right hemisphere to become more active. In simpler terms, this specific vibration can induce altered states of consciousness, feelings of deep relaxation, heightened suggestibility, and vivid mental imagery. When you consider this in the context of the dark, enclosed space, the collective remains of the ancestors, and the ritual practices likely held here, a startling picture emerges. The builders of the hypogeum may have possessed an empirical, perhaps even inherited, understanding of psychoacoustics. They engineered a space where sound did not just carry messages, it transformed minds. The theory of ritual sleep and dreaming, or incubation, becomes powerfully compelling. A seeker or priest might have lain in these resonant chambers, surrounded by the bones of the forebears, while chanting or drumming at the sacred frequency filled the air. This sonic bath could have gently guided them into a trance state, a bridge between worlds where visions, prophecies, and communication with the ancestors were not just believed, but physically and neurologically facilitated. The hypogeum, therefore, reveals a hidden knowledge that merges the spiritual and the scientific. Its architects were not just stone carvers, they were masters of consciousness, using the very vibration of the earth to sculpt human perception and open doors to realms we are only now beginning to measure with our instruments. They understood that the most profound temples are not those that reach for the sky, but those that tune the mind. From the resonant chambers of Malta, we travel to the windswept plains of western Turkey, to a mound that holds not one city but 9. This is Hisarlik, the site most scholars agree was the legendary Troy. For centuries, the Trojan War existed solely in the verses of Homer's Iliad, a magnificent epic of heroes, gods, and a wooden horse, considered by many to be pure poetic invention. Then came Heinrich Schliemann, a wealthy businessman obsessed with proving the poem was history. In the 1870s, he began digging into the great mound of Hisarlik with a dramatic and famously destructive fervor. What he found beneath the classical ruins of Greek and Roman cities was a layered cake of civilizations. Hisarlik was not a single lost city, it was a tell, a man-made hill formed by the mud brick ruins of successive settlements built directly atop the ashes of their predecessors, spanning nearly 4,000 years. Schliemann famously uncovered a treasure trove of gold jewelry and artifacts, which he mistakenly declared to be the treasure of King Priam from Homer's Troy. While his methods were crude and he destroyed crucial layers of history in his haste, he achieved his ultimate goal. He proved a Bronze Age citadel of great wealth and power had stood exactly where tradition said Troy should be. The hidden knowledge here is not a single artifact, but the stratified story told by the Earth itself. Archaeologists who followed Schliemann with far more care have identified 9 major layers, Troy 1 through 9. The search for the Homeric city narrowed to 2 candidates, Troy 6 and Troy 7. Troy 6 was a magnificent, sprawling citadel with imposing, sloping walls that match Homer's description of well-built Troy. It showed signs of sudden destruction around 1250 BC, likely from a powerful earthquake, not an army. Built directly upon its rubble was Troy 7a, a poorer, more crowded city within the repaired walls. This settlement bears the unmistakable scars of war. There is evidence of a catastrophic fire that raged through the city. Skeletal remains were found in streets and houses, some with signs of violent death. Most tellingly, sling stones and arrowheads were discovered embedded in the fortifications, and stockpiles of stones, clearly meant to be thrown from the walls by defenders, were found inside the gates. This is the portrait of a city under a prolonged siege, one that ultimately fell to conquest and flame. The dating of Troy 7a's destruction, around 1180 BC, fits perfectly within the late Bronze Age collapse, a period of widespread upheaval, migration, and warfare across the eastern Mediterranean. This is the profound hidden knowledge the ruins reveal, the historical kernel of truth within the epic poem. The evidence suggests a major, traumatic conflict did indeed engulf this strategic citadel controlling the entrance to the Dardanelles. The war described by Homer was likely a magnified, poetic memory of a real struggle for control of this vital trade route, a conflict that became the defining story for generations of Greeks. The ruins of Troy thus perform a miraculous alchemy. They transform myth into memory. They show us how a real event, a siege that shattered a city, could echo down centuries, gathering heroes and gods around its core, becoming the foundational narrative of a civilization. The stones and bones of Hisarlik give substance to the legend, proving that sometimes the greatest stories ever told are not mere fiction, but history remembered in the key of wonder. What other epic tales whispered around fires for generations might be waiting for a trowel to uncover their buried truth? The ruins of Troy anchor a legendary war in the soil of history, but what of a city that vanished beneath the waves, leaving only whispers in sacred texts? Off the western coast of India, in the Gulf of Combat, lies a discovery that challenges the timeline of civilization itself. This is the search for the legendary Dwarka, the golden city of the Hindu god Lord Krishna. Ancient Sanskrit scriptures like the Mahabharata and the Puranas describe it in magnificent detail, a fortified island capital with majestic gates, beautiful gardens, and a bustling port. The texts also record its catastrophic end, stating that after Krishna's departure from the earthly realm, the glorious city was consumed by the sea. For centuries, this was considered pure mythology, a divine allegory. Then, in the late 1980s, marine archaeologists began to scan the seabed. What they found was not a smooth, sandy bottom, but the distinct geometric outlines of man-made structures. Sonar images revealed large, rectangular foundations, grid-like patterns of streets, and what appeared to be the remains of a massive stone wall stretching over 5 miles. These are not natural rock formations. The grid layout aligns with descriptions of ancient planned cities, and the scale suggests a major urban center. Further exploration by divers and dredging brought up physical proof from the ocean floor. They recovered not just scattered stones, but worked artifacts including polished stone blocks, pottery shards, beads, and even human teeth and bone. Most startling were the retrieval of stone anchors, the kind used by ancient sailing vessels, confirming this was indeed an active port. The dating of these artifacts is where the story detonates into controversy. When samples of the retrieved materials, including wood and pottery, were subjected to carbon dating, the results returned a date of approximately 7,500 BC. That is 9,500 years ago. If accurate, this is a date that shatters conventional understanding. It would place this sunken city thousands of years before the great Indus Valley civilization, long considered the cradle of Indian culture and contemporary with sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. The immediate scientific reaction was understandably one of deep skepticism. Critics argue that the artifacts retrieved by dredging, which scoops material from the seabed, could have been displaced from different eras and locations, creating a misleading mixture. The stone structures, they caution, could be natural beach rock formations shaped by tides. They demand in situ evidence, artifacts found in their original, undisturbed context on the seafloor before such a revolutionary date can be accepted. Yet the possibility hangs in the saline water, electrifying and profound. The hidden knowledge the Gulf of Combat may hold is the potential physical bridge between myth and geological reality. The legend of Dwarka's drowning perfectly mirrors a real-world event, the rapid rise in sea levels at the end of the last ice age. Around 10,000 years ago, as glaciers melted, ocean levels rose hundreds of feet, swallowing coastal settlements worldwide. Could the story of Krishna's city be a cultural memory of that global cataclysm, passed down through thousands of years of oral tradition before being written in scripture? This suggests that the Indian subcontinent may have hosted a sophisticated, pre-Indus maritime culture, a society skilled in urban planning, trade, and seafaring, whose achievements were literally washed from the map. Their knowledge of ocean currents, shipbuilding, and city planning would have been lost with their harbors. The search for Dwarka, therefore, is more than an archaeological dig. It is a dive into the deep memory of a culture. It asks whether our oldest stories are not inventions, but histories compressed and mythologized over millennia. If the stones under the Gulf of Combat are truly from that forgotten epoch, they are not just ruins, they are a drowned library, holding the blueprints of a world that flourished when much of humanity was still in its infancy, a world that sank but never quite vanished from the songs of its descendants. Emerging from the dense jungles of Veracruz, Mexico, are faces that should not exist. The Olmec colossal heads are monuments of pure, intimidating presence, 17 giant portraits carved from single blocks of volcanic basalt, each one a testament to a civilization that laid the foundation for all of Mesoamerica. The Olmec are often called the mother culture of the region, flourishing from around 1500 to 400 BC, and these heads are their most iconic and baffling legacy. Their scale is humbling, with the largest weighing over 20 tons and standing nearly 10 feet tall. To stand before one is to be scrutinized by a gaze that has endured for millennia, a face wearing a distinctive helmet with broad features, full lips, and a stern, commanding expression. The creation process itself reveals a hidden knowledge of logistics and artistry that defies the era. The basalt for these heads did not come from the jungle lowlands where they were found. It was quarried from the Tuxtla Mountains, dozens of miles away through swamps and rugged terrain. Imagine the effort moving a 20-ton block of solid stone without the wheel, without draft animals through such a landscape. The Olmec likely used a combination of log rollers, rope, and immense human labor, possibly floating the stones on rafts along rivers during the rainy season. This was not a casual undertaking. It was a monumental investment in prestige and power, reserved for the most important individuals in their society. And that is the first layer of knowledge the heads impart. They are almost certainly portraits of powerful Olmec rulers. The unique helmets each head wears are now believed to represent the protective headgear worn during the ritual Mesoamerican bowl game, a sport that was far more than a game. It was a cosmic drama reenacting the struggle between life and death. By depicting their leaders in this sacred gear, the Olmec were fusing political authority with divine ritual, showing that to rule was to participate directly in the order of the cosmos. The heads are not just art, they are statements of a sophisticated, hierarchical society capable of organizing vast projects to glorify its elite. Yet, it is the features of these faces that have ignited one of archaeology's most persistent and controversial debates. To many observers, the broad noses, full lips, and overall visage of certain heads do not resemble the typical indigenous peoples of the Americas. Instead, they bear a striking resemblance to facial features found in parts of Africa. This observation has fueled theories of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, suggesting that African voyagers may have reached the Americas thousands of years before Columbus, influencing Olmec culture and perhaps even providing the model for their rulers. Mainstream archaeology firmly rejects this interpretation. Scholars point out that the features depicted are well within the range of native Mesoamerican physiology, and that the stylized, purposeful carving of the heads for symbolic effect, emphasizing authority and perhaps even infant-like qualities associated with gods, explains their unique appearance. They argue that seeing African features is a form of projection, applying modern racial categories to an ancient artistic tradition. The hidden knowledge here, therefore, is not necessarily proof of contact, but a lesson in how we interpret the past. The controversy forces us to confront our own assumptions. Are we seeing what was truly there or what we expect to see? The Olmec heads stand as a Rorschach test of history. Whether they depict local rulers with stylized features or memorialize visitors from across the sea, their existence demands we consider the Olmec as a people of far-reaching influence and profound skill. Their society mastered stone, organized labor on a grand scale, and developed the iconographic language that would later be adopted by the Maya and the Aztec. These silent sentinels of the jungle are the bedrock of a cultural tradition, their stern faces guarding the origins of complex belief systems, calendrical science, and the very concept of divine kingship in the Americas. They remind us that the first chapters of a story are often the most mysterious, carved in stone too heavy to move and too profound to easily decipher. Carved from the rose-red cliffs of southern Jordan, the city of Petra is far more than a beautiful facade. While the iconic treasury, with its Hellenistic columns glowing in the desert sun, is a masterpiece of monumental art, the true genius of this Nabatean capital lies hidden in the rock itself and in the dry wadis that snake through the mountains. This was not just a city of tombs and temples, it was a self-sustaining fortress of commerce, made possible by a hidden knowledge of water that turned a barren canyon into a thriving oasis. The Nabateans were masters of hydrology in a land where rain was a fleeting, violent gift. They transformed their entire environment into a colossal water catchment system. They carved channels along cliff faces to divert flash floods from the narrow Sick, the main entrance gorge. They built massive dams to control the destructive torrents and funnel the precious water into a network of over 200 cisterns, both public and private, carved deep into the bedrock. These weren't simple holes, they were lined with waterproof plaster and designed with settling tanks to filter out silt, ensuring a clean supply. This intricate system could capture and store every drop of seasonal rainfall, providing enough water for a population of perhaps 20,000 people, their gardens, and even public baths and fountains. It was a triumph of foresight and engineering that allowed Petra to flourish as a green island in a sea of stone for centuries. But the Nabateans' connection to their environment extended beyond the earth to the sky. Key structures within Petra are aligned with celestial events, weaving astronomy into their sacred architecture. The vast monastery, another monumental facade high in the hills, is oriented so that the sun illuminates its central doorway during the winter solstice sunset, a dramatic hierophany of light marking the sun's rebirth. The treasury itself, though its interior is a simple square chamber, is positioned on an axis that some researchers believe aligns with the rising of certain stars important to the Nabatean calendar, possibly linking the arrival of trade caravans with specific celestial signs. This integration of hydrology and astronomy reveals a culture that saw the desert not as an empty wasteland, but as a living system to be understood, harnessed, and revered. This hidden knowledge of stone and water served a grander purpose, establishing Petra as the beating heart of ancient global trade. From the 4th century BC to the 1st century AD, the Nabateans controlled the lucrative incense routes, the superhighways of antiquity that carried frankincense, myrrh, spices, silks, and gems from Arabia, India, and the Far East to the markets of Egypt, Greece, and Rome. Petra's location was a strategic masterpiece, a natural fortress with a single, easily defended entrance, sitting at the crossroads of these major routes. The wealth that flowed through its gates funded the carving of its magnificent facades, but more importantly, it fostered a cosmopolitan hub of ideas. Here, Eastern and Western cultures met and blended, influencing Nabatean art, religion, and technology. Their hidden knowledge was not locked away, but traded and exchanged, making Petra a crucial synapse in the neural network of the ancient world. The city's eventual decline after Roman annexation and shifts in trade routes led to its abandonment and mythical status in the West. Yet its silent, waterless cisterns and star-aligned temples stand as a powerful lesson in sustainability and connection. Petra teaches us that the greatest civilizations are not those that conquer nature, but those that listen to it, learning the language of its rains and its stars to build a sanctuary in the most unlikely of places. Scattered across the misty highlands of Laos lies a landscape that feels like a giant's abandoned pantry. The Plain of Jaws is exactly that, thousands of massive stone vessels carved from solid rock, standing in silent clusters across the Xing Kuang Plateau. These are not delicate pottery, but monumental jars, some reaching over 9 feet tall and weighing several tons. Their shapes are simple yet imposing, with most featuring a cylindrical body, a slightly flared rim, and no decoration to speak of. The sheer number is staggering, with over 90 known sites containing from a single jar to groupings of nearly 400. They sit in open fields on hilltops and nestled in the forest, a haunting and inexplicable sight. Nearby quarries reveal where the sandstone was extracted, and some half-carved jars still lie attached to the bedrock, showing us the process was abruptly halted, frozen in time. This is the central mystery, a culture that invested generations of labor into carving, transporting, and arranging these colossal containers, yet left behind no grand temples, no written records, and no cities. Who were they, and what profound need drove them to create nothing else but these stone giants? The most widely accepted theory is that the jars were part of an elaborate burial practice. Archaeological excavations around the jars have uncovered human remains, burial goods like beads and ceramics, and evidence of secondary burial rites. This suggests bodies may have been placed inside the jars, or perhaps beside them, to decompose or be excarnated by the elements before the bones were collected for final interment elsewhere. The jars, in this view, were not coffins but sacred processing stations, vessels for the transformation from flesh to ancestor. Yet, other compelling ideas challenge this singular explanation. Local legend speaks of a race of giants who used the jars to brew vast quantities of rice wine to celebrate a great military victory. While myth, it points to a practical possibility. Could these have been fermentation vats for a community-scale production of alcohol for rituals or trade? Another theory considers the harsh, seasonal climate of the plateau. The jars, with their wide openings, could have been designed to collect precious monsoon rainwater, serving as a decentralized, stone-built reservoir system for travelers or isolated communities across the trade routes. The hidden knowledge the Plain of Jars reveals is not a specific technology, but a profound puzzle about human priorities. This culture channeled its collective energy and skill into a single, enigmatic artifact type on a monumental scale. They mastered quarrying, transportation without wheels, and precise stone carving, yet they chose not to build permanent settlements or defensive walls with that same knowledge. This forces us to expand our definition of a civilization's legacy. Perhaps their belief system was so intensely focused on the rites of death and the journey of the soul that all other architectural endeavors seemed secondary. Or maybe the jars were central to a living, cyclical practice, like rain collection or communal feasting, that was the very glue holding their society together across the dispersed landscape. The silence of the jars is deafening. They challenge our assumption that complex societies must always leave behind palaces and temples. Instead, they suggest a different model, one where a people's entire cosmological and practical world could be invested in a field of stone vessels, a silent, enduring testament to a belief we can walk among but may never fully hear. The silent fields of Laos ask us what a civilization chooses to carve in stone. But in the highlands of Ethiopia, an entire sacred city was not built but revealed. Lalibela is a place where faith moved mountains, or more precisely, where it instructed hands to carve away everything that was not a church. In the 12th and 13th centuries, under the direction of King Lalibela, a staggering project took shape. Instead of stacking stones upward, workers carved downward directly into the volcanic tuff of the mountainside. They did not construct 11 churches, they excavated them, each one a single, freestanding block of living rock isolated within a deep trench. The process defies belief. Architects and laborers began at the top, outlining the roof of a future church on the solid rock plateau. Then they began the agonizingly slow work of cutting downward, painstakingly removing the surrounding stone, foot by foot, year by year, to leave the church standing in a pit. They carved out windows, doors, intricate columns, and vast interior spaces, all from one connected piece of earth. The most famous of these, the Church of St. George, is shaped like a perfect Greek cross, a symbolic form sunk 40 feet into the ground, its roof level with the surrounding plain. To enter, you descend a narrow tunnel into the trench, and then through a low doorway into a space that feels both monumental and miraculously born, not made. This was far more than an architectural marvel. It was a spiritual statement of profound ambition. King Lalibela, a devout Christian ruler, sought to create a new Jerusalem for pilgrims who could no longer safely reach the Holy Land, which was then under Muslim control. The entire complex is laid out to symbolize the Holy City. A small stream that runs through the site is named the River Jordan, and the arrangement of the churches is believed to map sacred sites in Jerusalem. This was not just a place of worship, it was a substitute pilgrimage destination, a heaven on earth carved from the very bones of Africa. The hidden knowledge here is woven into the stone itself. Beyond the obvious engineering genius, the layout and specific features of the churches are believed by local clergy and scholars to hold layers of esoteric Christian knowledge. The labyrinthine tunnels connecting some of the churches are said to represent the spiritual path to salvation, dark and confusing before emerging into the light of the sanctuary. The alignment of certain doors and windows is thought to capture specific angles of sunlight on holy days, transforming light into a divine participant in the liturgy. Perhaps most tantalizing are the persistent theories of celestial alignment. Some researchers suggest that the placement of the churches mirrors constellations or significant astronomical patterns, anchoring this earthly Jerusalem to the heavenly one. While definitive proof is complex, the intention is clear. The builders sought to create a perfect microcosm, a point where the divine realm intersected with the physical world. The rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, therefore, hold a dual revelation. They demonstrate a hidden knowledge of mass excavation and structural engineering achieved with simple tools and extraordinary vision, a literal inversion of how we think buildings are made. But more deeply, they guard a symbolic knowledge, a stone gospel written in trenches and tunnels, aiming to freeze a moment of celestial harmony and make it walkable for every pilgrim who descends into its cool, shadowed heart. In these mountains, faith did not just inspire art, it commanded the very landscape to become a cathedral. Rising from the savanna of southeastern Africa, the walls of Great Zimbabwe are a symphony in stone. This is the largest ancient stone complex on the continent south of the Sahara, a sprawling city of majestic, curving walls built entirely without mortar. The scale is breathtaking, with the outer perimeter of the great enclosure alone stretching over 800 feet. The walls are a masterpiece of dry stone technique, constructed from precisely cut granite blocks that fit together so seamlessly they have endured for centuries. Their most striking feature is the elegant chevron pattern, a decorative zigzag band of darker stone that runs along the top of the highest walls, a signature of Shona craftsmanship that speaks of pride and identity. At the heart of this enclosure stands the structure's greatest mystery, a solid, conical tower over 30 feet tall. It has no door, no windows, no internal chambers. It is a solid monolith of stone, a silent sentinel whose purpose has been debated for generations. Some believe it was a symbolic grain silo, representing the king's wealth and his role as provider. Others see it as an astronomical marker or a phallic symbol of royal power and fertility. Its true meaning is locked within the culture that built it, but its presence is undeniable, a declaration in granite of a civilization's confidence and skill. For decades, the very existence of Great Zimbabwe posed an uncomfortable question for colonial-era scholars. The idea that an indigenous African people could have created such a sophisticated, monumental city was to them unthinkable. A persistent, racist narrative took hold, claiming the ruins must have been built by Phoenicians, Arabs, or even the biblical King Solomon. This was a deliberate erasure, a refusal to see the evidence laid out in stone. It took the work of later archaeologists and ultimately the political independence of Zimbabwe itself to firmly re-establish the truth. The city was built by the ancestors of the Shona people, flourishing between the 11th and 15th centuries as the capital of a wealthy and powerful empire. The hidden knowledge Great Zimbabwe reveals is the profound sophistication of a pre-colonial African state, a knowledge written in trade routes and celestial alignments. The wealth that built those walls flowed from control of a vast commercial network. Great Zimbabwe was the hub of a gold and ivory empire. Its rulers controlled mines that tapped into the rich veins of the interior plateau, sending precious gold east to the Swahili coast cities like Kilwa. From there, it entered the Indian Ocean trade, reaching Arabia, India, and possibly even China. In return, luxury goods flooded back. Chinese celadon pottery, Persian faience, and glass beads from India have all been excavated within the ruins. This was not an isolated kingdom, but a connected player in a medieval global economy. The city's very layout reflects this stratified, prosperous society. The hill complex, perched on a granite dome, was likely the spiritual and royal center. The valley ruins below housed the elite, while the great enclosure itself, with its high walls and iconic tower, remains the subject of intense study, possibly a royal palace or a sacred precinct for the king's wives. This urban planning reveals a complex statecraft, a society organized with distinct roles and a centralized authority capable of marshalling the labor to build a metropolis. Beyond commerce and politics, the stones whisper of a connection to the cosmos. The orientation of certain walls and doorways within the complex aligns with significant astronomical events. Most notably, an eastern entrance in the great enclosure is positioned to catch the first light of the rising sun during the equinoxes. Other alignments may track the cycles of the moon and Venus. This celestial knowledge was not abstract science, it was practical and sacred. It governed agricultural cycles, dictated the timing of religious ceremonies, and legitimized the ruler who was seen as the intermediary between the people and the divine order of the heavens. The conical tower itself, when viewed from specific vantage points at dawn, may have cast a shadow that acted as a giant sundial, marking the passage of the seasons. Great Zimbabwe, therefore, is a triple monument. It is an architectural wonder of dry stone walls, a testament to a vast and wealthy trading empire, and a stone calendar aligned with the sky. It stands as a permanent rebuttal to those who would deny Africa's grand historical narrative, proving that long before European contact, a civilization here mastered the arts of statecraft, commerce, and astronomy, leaving behind a legacy as solid and enduring as the granite from which it was carved. The stone circles of Great Zimbabwe spoke a language of power and celestial order, but on the small Mediterranean island of Malta, a different kind of temple culture whispered of a world built on peace, art, and profound ritual. The Tarxian temples, a sprawling complex of interconnecting chambers and courtyards, are the final chapter in this island's remarkable megalithic story, dating back to 3150 BC. To walk through these low, curving walls is to step into the very heart of a forgotten spiritual universe. The scale is intimate yet overwhelming, built from massive limestone slabs fitted together with a careful, patient skill. But it is the artistry that truly captivates. The walls are alive with carvings, a sacred text in stone. Spirals swirl and coil across the rock faces, symbols that may represent eternity, the cycles of life and death, or perhaps the labyrinthine journey of the soul. These are not crude etchings, but masterful bas-reliefs, their curves smooth and deliberate, showing a society that valued aesthetic beauty as a direct expression of the divine. Central to this sacred art are the famous statues of corpulent figures, often called the Fat Ladies. These rounded, full-bodied forms, with their pleated skirts and tiny feet, radiate a sense of abundant, fertile power. They are not portraits of individuals, but likely representations of a mother goddess, a deity of fertility, life, and the earth itself. Their presence throughout the temples suggests a religion centered on creation, growth, and the nurturing forces of nature. This focus on a feminine divine principle stands in stark contrast to the warrior gods and kings celebrated in later civilizations. The hidden knowledge of Tarxian, however, is not just in its peaceful iconography, but in the physical evidence of what happened here. Archaeologists discovered specific areas within the complex designated for ritual practice. Elaborate stone altars were found, some with intricate spiral designs echoing the wall carvings. More tellingly, excavations uncovered deposits of animal bones, primarily those of sheep, goats, and cattle, alongside sharp flint knives. The bones showed clear-cut marks consistent with slaughter, but they were not scattered as food waste, they were carefully placed. This points unequivocally to a practice of ritual sacrifice. The act was likely a central part of their worship, an offering to the goddess to ensure fertility for the land, the animals, and the people. This evidence paints a portrait of a stable, long-lasting, and remarkably peaceful culture. For over 1,000 years, these temple builders on Malta and its sister island, Gozo, constructed these monumental complexes without any signs of fortifications, weapons of war, or evidence of invasion. Their society seems to have been organized around a priestly class that directed communal labor not for defense, but for the creation of sacred spaces. They developed sophisticated architectural techniques like the corbelled ceilings seen in their underground burial sites and a deep artistic tradition. This was a civilization that predated the pyramids of Egypt, yet it channeled its collective energy into art, ritual, and a harmonious relationship with the cycles of life. And then, around 2500 BC, it all came to an end. The temples were not destroyed by war, they were simply abandoned. The culture collapsed, vanishing from the archaeological record. The cause remains one of history's quiet mysteries, perhaps environmental degradation from overfarming, a prolonged drought, or a slow societal drift as new ideas arrived by sea. Whatever the reason, the people faded away, leaving their magnificent temples as the sole testament to their complex spiritual world. The silent altars and smiling stone goddesses of Toxian ask us a poignant final question. What does it mean when a civilization's greatest legacy is not conquest or gold, but 1,000 years of peaceful devotion, carved in spiral and stone, only to disappear without a single written word to explain why? From the silent goddesses of Toxian to the flooded streets of a possible Dwarka, this journey across 30 ancient ruins has been a walk through the scattered pages of a book we are only beginning to read. Each site, from Göbekli Tepe's hunter-gatherer temple to the impossible stones of Baalbek, is a puzzle piece in a story far grander and more mysterious than any single textbook could contain. They are not isolated wonders, but echoes of a forgotten symphony. Look closely, and the same haunting melodies repeat across continents and millennia. A profound astronomical precision, whether in the solstice light of Newgrange or the celestial city plan of Teotihuacan, a mastery of materials and engineering that defies our timelines, seen in the seamless joints of Sacsayhuamon and the gearwork genius of the Antikythera mechanism. And everywhere, the unmistakable signature of sophisticated societies, not primitive tribes, but organized cultures with shared vision, capable of moving mountains both literally and spiritually. What does this tapestry of hidden knowledge ultimately reveal? It suggests that human history is not a simple, linear climb from cave to skyscraper. It is more likely a story of cycles. Periods of dazzling advancement where understanding of the stars, the earth, and the self-reached peaks we can barely comprehend, followed by collapse, amnesia, and a long, slow remembering. The global flood myths, the water erosion on the Sphinx, the sunken cities they whisper of real cataclysms, climatic shifts and rising seas that may have severed our connection to a deeper past. These ruins are the survivors of those resets, the indestructible fragments left behind when softer knowledge, the scrolls, the songs, the techniques, was washed away. Yet through it all pulses one enduring constant, the human drive to build, to reach beyond the mundane, and to encode our awe, our questions, and our very souls into something permanent. We raised stones to speak to the stars, carved labyrinths to map the journey of the spirit, and buried our greatest works with the care of those planting a seed for a future they would never see. This is an invitation, then, to see the world with new eyes, to look at an old map and wonder what is missing, to question the tidy narratives and dare to connect the dots that span oceans and epochs. The past is not a closed case, but an active excavation, and you are part of it. Your curiosity is the most important tool we have, so keep asking, keep exploring. If these mysteries resonate with you, subscribe to continue this journey into history's greatest enigmas. And tell us below which of these 30 ruins holds the secret that captivates you the most. Is it the purpose of the Great Pyramid's hidden voids, the language of the Rongorongo script, or the true builders of Puma Punku? The conversation is just beginning, and every new perspective brings us closer to hearing what the stones have been trying to say all along.